14. Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
It's Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran today, on with Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan. Mr. Merritt, thanks for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
You met with State Controller Tom DiNapoli Saturday at Marino's Restaurant in Hornell. What did you come away from that meeting with?
Well, it's always nice to have Tom in town. He's visited here a number of times. I think Tom, his message to everyone assembled there Saturday was that, the economy in New York State's getting better. All the bond rating agencies have improved New York State's credit rating, and he says revenues are up, where other states around us they're kind of going down, and that he was very supportive of the governor's economic policies. The pension system is healthy. It's 92% funded, which is anything over 80 is considered very good, and that he was able to announce recently a reduction in the pension rates being charged to municipalities, that it going to average about 9%, a little higher, maybe 11% for the police and fire retirement system. So the rates are going down, which is good news for local governments, and that he's being ever vigilant and uncovering more incidents of corruption and wrongdoing by elected and appointed officials throughout the state, by breaching the trust of the taxpayers. So he's doing a great job and becoming more aggressive in that arena, in partnership with the state attorney general and the U.S. attorneys. So all in all, he outlined how busy his office is, how proactive they've been, but also the message, all in all, was very positive about where New York State is going, and that with all the economic programs that we have and the fact that the governor has been able to rein in state spending and produce 4 on-time and balanced state budgets in a row, which is normally unheard of in New York. So New York State is getting a better reputation nationally, and we've been able to attract businesses. We have we've regained all the jobs we've lost in New York State in 2008. Since 2008 with the crash, we're actually ahead. We're actually about 220,000 new jobs of where we were. So we've gained back the 1 million jobs we lost, plus we've gained 220 under the governor's leadership and Tom DiNapoli's leadership. So everything was very positive, and it was a very positive event, and he had positive news for everybody.
DiNapoli's opponent is the Syracuse area controller, Bob Antonacci. This was new to me when I saw it. Antonacci is alleging that DiNapoli is a partisan state controller. I'd never heard that before. He says that DiNapoli's using the state pension system fund as a weapon against private businesses by forcing private businessmen to give to liberal causes against their will. That's something Antonacci's got posted on his website. Do you buy into that?
No, I don't. What he's trying to refer to, when we have governments that, in South Africa, when they had an apartheid government, the state controller and led by New York, and that wasn't even the Tom DiNapoli wasn't the controller then, but they would not invest in South African firm and businesses because of the apartheid system. And it's the same thing now. They won't invest with companies that do business with Iran because of their nuclear program, and they won't invest in companies that do business with various dictators from throughout the world. So it's not about partisan or whatever, but a lot of economic sanctions are placed on businesses by governments throughout the world such as Iran, and that's what the pension system is doing. It's not a partisan thing. They're just following suit of the lead of their government leaders throughout the world when they're trying to change behavior through economic sanctions. So the Antonucci is misguided in making those claims. There's the least partisan person I ever met is Tom DiNapoli. I mean, he was overwhelmingly approved by both Democrats and Republicans in the Assembly.
Yeah, I seem to remember Senator Young is friends with him.
What? Pardon me?
I seem to remember that Senator Kathy Young is friends with him.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm not buying it's not true. It's the political season. You can say anything you want and get away with it.
Have not had you on one of our shows since the primary last week. Your thoughts on Governor Andrew Cuomo's victory over Zephyr Teachout?
I don't think it was as strong a victory as the governor and as other people had hoped for, but I can tell you I'd take 62% of the vote any given day. And with the horrible turnout that of less than 10% statewide, I think the governor did very well. I think there are some factions in the Democratic Party that are unhappy with the governor on his stances, particularly with the public employee unions, and the fact that he instituted teacher evaluations, I think some of the frackers, anti-frackers, are mad at him. I think those in favor of fracking are mad at him.
Actually, Zephyr Teachout just came out and said she'll endorse Cuomo if he comes out against fracking.
Right. Well, and I think the governor has been very good about not making that political statement. He's waiting for the science to come in, and that's what he should do. I think if you ever heard President Obama speak, he embraces the natural gas exploration and the fact that it's creating energy independence here at home, and that that it can be done safely, and that we should take advantage of these natural resources if we can do it safely and not and damage the environment or water supply and things of that nature. I mean, there's two polarized groups here. There's one that's staunchly in favor of fracking, yet the other is staunchly opposed to it. And somewhere in between is the truth and the science in this thing. So I think the governor is taking the right stance. I mean, he hasn't said yes, it's good, no, it's bad. He says let's wait for the science, and he's leaving it in the hands of the DEC and the state health department, which I think is the right choice.
Republican candidate for Governor Rob Astorino has a new commercial out.
Ever wonder why it's hard living in New York, affording property taxes, or what a layoff would mean? Ever wonder if your children will have the opportunities you did, or what Andrew Cuomo's failed policies and corruption mean to you?
Mayor Hogan, your thoughts on that spot?
Well, first of all, I find that interesting that he's talking about high property taxes when Westchester County leads the pack of all counties in the nation of having the highest property taxes. So I think he probably would be best served not to remind people of his miserable record as the county executive in Westchester. They absolutely have the highest tax rate of any county in the nation. All you got to do is look it up. That's common knowledge. So I think why he would draw attention to that is beyond me.
When Astorino appears locally, I've seen him in Angelica and Hornell. He says that in Westchester County, he appeals to both Democrats and Republicans alike. Do you think that can translate into a statewide phenomenon for him?
No, I do not. And I don't think that the fact that Zephyr Teachout got 32% of the vote is going to... You think those people that voted against Cuomo because he wasn't liberal enough are going to then switch their vote to an extreme conservative like,
Rob Astorino?
Rob Astorino? No, I don't think that's going to be the case at all.
On the state attorney general's race, state AG Eric Schneiderman was endorsed by former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. I don't see any endorsement from de Blasio yet. Is that a slight?
I don't know, and I'm really I don't know who can figure out New York City politics. You have why I can't see why de Blasio wouldn't endorse Snyderman, and I'm sure he will if he hasn't already. But I don't think it's a slight. And like I say, there's so many factions, and all these guys are from New York City or the suburbs. You got Como from Queens, Snyderman's from New York City. You got Tom DiNapoli is from Nassau County, which is a suburb. So I don't know. I can't really comment on what de Blasio does.
Yeah, that one's tough to figure. We're talking with Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan today. Moving on to the national scene. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand just wrote a book. In it, she talks about being sexually harassed on her way up in politics, specifically picked on about her weight, teased about her weight after a pregnancy. Apparently, some big shot in politics told her she was too fat to be elected. And when recalling the incident in an interview with the Huffington Post, she actually swore about it. Your thoughts on this new book by Gillibrand?
Well, I think Senator Gillibrand is one of the rising stars in the Democratic Party, not only in New York State but nationally. And she's certainly been a champion on women's issues, particularly sexual harassment in the military, and she wants to change the culture. And I believe by writing this book, she shows that sexual harassment can take many different forms, and it can be covert and it can be subliminal, as like when she had her baby and she was carrying a little extra weight from the pregnancy, and some of her male colleagues made mention of that or light of that.
Yeah, it sounds like a girl I know who worked for a TV station, worked for a pretty big TV station, actually, and they were constantly hounding her about her weight.
Right.
Although that's somewhat of a different thing.
And having been a guy that's struggled with weight his whole life, I'm a big guy, and I've gone up and down and been stable and not so stable, and I'm sure that I've had, and I've been subject to nasty comments and from people that feel that what they're going to say is going to hurt you. So I don't think it's just germane to women. I think discrimination goes across the board, male, female. I think that or sexual harassment can happen on both sides. So I think she just wanted to bring to light, even in where you have supposedly intelligent people that have been elected to represent their states in the Senate, are still will make stupid comments.
The Washington Post just did a poll. Interesting results. It says there's wide support for going after ISIS, weak approval for Obama, 77% disapprove of the GOP in Congress, 61% disapprove of the Democrats in Congress. Wanted to take this one by one. The ISIS poll, that's no big surprise there. What about weak support for Obama?
Well, and I don't know why. And I've got all kinds of theories, but I just read something where the President Obama has cut this deficit by 2/3. He campaigned on the fact that he was going to end the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he's done so, like we think, we hope, other than with ISIS. But he's had the longest sustained job growth in the last 50 years in this country, as far as month-to-month job growth, and he has expanded health care, as he said he was going to do. He's made it, so there's no more pre-existing conditions. There's 8 million more people insured than before he took office. So if you list his accomplishments, and he still has low approval ratings, and I think it's because of the way that he's been attacked by the Congress, by the Republican Congress. They won't work with him, refuse to work with him. So he has to take extraordinary measures through executive orders to get anything done. And so, I think people look at that and they see, but even without Congress, what he's accomplished, and they try to talk to him as the big spender and stuff like that. He's cut the deficit by 2/3 since he's come into office. And he's had the longest sustained job growth in almost the history of this country. It's amazing that he can accomplish so many positive things and be perceived by 61% of the people that he's not doing the job, not moving the country in the right direction. There's something wrong there.
What about the strong disapproval of the Republican House and the 61% disapproval of Democrats in the Senate?
It's a sad commentary. There's too much polarization. There's too much ideological crap going on in this country, and a fight for the hearts and the minds of Americans, and who's going to be more conservative, who's going to be more liberal. I think we should, I've said it 100 times on this station, and I've written it. It's not about right wing, it's not about left wing, it's about doing the right thing for the American people. And I think the president's been trying to do that. He's not getting any help. And our legislative branch is paralyzed for fear that someone's going to primary them in the election if they're not conservative enough or not liberal enough. An example of that was right here in New York State. But as far as ISIS go, I notice all these politicians and talking heads on TV and in Washington, they're all, we should be boots on the ground, as long as it's their boots. Their boots aren't the ones going on the ground, or their sons or their daughters going on the ground. We can fight this threat of ISIS, in the unconventional way. It doesn't mean that American sons and daughters have to be placed on the ground in Syria and fight a foe for the rest of the world. I'm all for eradicating ISIS, but I'm also for everyone else stepping up to the plate, paying their fair share, and building a legitimate coalition where everyone puts in their amount of money and their amount of blood, sweat, and tears. And it shouldn't be just American boys and American girls that go over there and put themselves in harm's way to eradicate another problem in the Middle East. Now, if this continues, we'll be over there the rest of our lives fighting an ideological battle for the hearts and minds of the Islamic states. This basically is a religious war between Sunni Muslims and the Shiite Muslims, and none of the twain should meet. And I would think that these American politicians would do a little research that this is another religious conflict that dates back to the days of Muhammad, and it's directly a result of a succession of who was going to be the leader in the Islamic world. Was it going to be Muhammad's nephew or someone else? And so this is what we're talking about, and it's a religious war. These ISIS people are brutal, and their tactics are horrible. And I think it's got to be the Muslim world that comes together and eradicates this situation and goes about developing religious tolerance in their respective countries. And so when you have Ted Cruz or you have John McCain, you have this one or that one talk about we need to have boots on the ground, yeah, as long as it's not their boots or their sons or daughters' boots and someone else's. And I've lived through the Vietnam War, and I honor the service of every man and woman who've been in the military here. But I wouldn't be quick to invade this country and send American sons and daughters in there unless the rest of the world, and particularly the Middle East region, follow suit and pay the bill and and fight side by side with us, not behind us.
One last national question before we go to the break. I want to ask you about the Reed Robertson race. She says he voted against lesbians, Native American women, and immigrant women from being included in the Violence Against Women Act. He says she's for the SAFE Act. It seems to be issue-oriented and not personal attacks. Are you pleased with that?
Yeah. I think that Tom Reed is trying to portray Martha Robinson as extreme liberal, and that she'd be unable to. I mean, what's the difference? He's an extreme conservative, and the whole thing. And I think his latest TV ad where he's got the flower, he got the old Volkswagen van and the psychedelic and paisley colors and trying to tie Martha Robinson to Nancy Pelosi and this thing. That's just ridiculous. And I told Martha that if she just stuck to his record and hammered at his record, he has voted against the best interest of his constituency time after time after time. Whether it was the Affordable Health Care Act or Obamacare, as they call it, whether it was SNAP program reducing the food stamp program, whether it was unemployment insurance. And I know people who were hard workers that were directly affected by that vote, not to extend unemployment insurance. So if she would just hammer at what he's voted against or not supported, which has directly hurt the constituency of the 23rd Congressional District, she's going to be in this race, and she could win it.
We're talking with Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan, and Hornell issues will be covered when we get back in just a moment. Brian O'Neill in on the Newsmaker Show, filling in for Kevin Doran today. On the line with us, Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan. Mayor Hogan, the Monday night council meetings, any thoughts?
Well, the one resolution with regard to entering in a partnership with Steuben County and the city of Corning and Hornell and the sales tax distribution agreement there, whereby we would end preemption and take a certain amount from the county. That's an important vote, and I think that will be it's beneficial for the city taxpayers in the long run. And the beauty of it is, if we opt out of sales tax preemption, we can always opt back in. So it's not a fait accompli or a final decision. You can always move back. This agreement with the county will be for 5 years, and it won't go forward if Corning doesn't get involved. But I think it's good for the county. It's good for the two cities.
Any final thoughts on Hornell issues before we go?
That the foreclosure sale on the cinema that everyone's anxious to know about is moving forward, and that's going to be held October 9th at 11 o'clock in Bath. So the foreclosure order has been signed, and the sale has been scheduled and duly advertised in the legals. So we're anxious for that date to come. So our prospective buyer hopefully will be successful, and it won't be too long. Maybe by the holiday season we'll be able to attend the movies on Main Street in Hornell again.
That would be nice.
Yes.
Mayor Shawn Hogan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for letting me on, Bri. Thank you very much.
All righty. News is next here on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.